2-minute warning, counselors, 2-minute warning.
Just leave this up here, is that fine? Or? I think so. Well, yeah, the mayor does this thing and then I put it.
I know. Well, you can talk about me. I don't care.
I'm calling the December 9th, 2021 regular meeting of the Roswell City Council to order. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Robeck is absent. Counselor Oropesa?
Here.
Counselor Best?
Here.
Counselor Stubbs?
Here.
Counselor Foster?
Present.
Counselor Perry is absent. Counselor Kennard?
Present.
Counselor Moore? Counselor Lopez?
Present.
Counselor Sanchez? Mayor Kintai?
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask everyone to please rise while Councilor Lopez leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Councilor Best does the invocation. Councilor Lopez.
Lord, we come before you today and we ask that you heal our country. It desperately, desperately needs you. We ask that you continue to work with the city of Roswell. We pray that our decisions are well for the city and that we continue to grow in the manner that we're growing. And that you watch over all of us, our family, our friends, as they travel and as we are here in this room. In Jesus' name, amen.
Councilor Best.
Okay, good evening. I make a motion to approve the agenda for December 9th, 2021, regular city council meeting, including removing the following consent items and place them on the regular agenda to be heard in their numbered order. 9, the PO to IPR Limited of Albuquerque, New Mexico. 10, ITB 20-003, Hondo River Trail Rehabilitation. 11, award of Third and Orchard Waterline repairs. 12, award of BFD to Alpha Southwest. 13, award of South Sunset Avenue Pavement Rehabilitation Project. Also to include removing the consent agenda item 24, which is the resolution 21-81, the Chaves County Hazard Mitigation Plan. This item needs to be postponed until January 13th, 2022, City Council meeting, and placed on the consent agenda as recommended by the Public Safety Committee. We are waiting for FEMA approval.
I have a motion by Councilor Best
Oh.
and a second by Councilor Foster to approve the agenda with consent items 5, 10, 11, 12, and 13 to be heard regularly, and item 24 postponed until January. Is there any discussion or debate on the agenda as presented?
What? Yeah, you said 5 instead of 9.
I said, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Any debate or discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the agenda as presented. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, Councilor Sanchez, can you activate your vote box? Okay. That passes 8-0. All right, item number 2, I will strive to be very brief, but I will reiterate what I have said on at least 2 other occasions because of the ongoing discussions on a national level. During this administration, no employee of the city of Roswell will be required to be vaccinated to retain their employment. No one will be terminated if they do not get vaccinated. Having said that, I am an advocate for the vaccine and have personally received the booster. But no one will have their livelihood at risk if they have concerns or issues. Furthermore, no citizen of this community will be denied services if they fail to wear a mask when they come into a city facility. City staff, it is their discretion on whether they wear a mask or not, but no citizen will be denied service. On that, move on to item number 3. Chief Smith, will you need an interpreter?
Subtitles. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Honorable Mayor. You hear me? Oh, sorry. Just want to go into some brief preamble before I get into the slideshow. Today's national policing climate, there is zero fear of police prosecution. Smash and grabs, you're watching them on TV, there's absolutely nothing holding people back. Shoplifters now carry calculators in certain communities. I don't know if you're aware of this. When they raised the threshold of a misdemeanor, they make sure they steal the exact amount under that threshold, so it's a misdemeanor. The reason why they're doing that is because of the new bail reform and revolving door, where if they steal under a certain amount and it's not a violent offense, they're not held. So they're back out on the street. Bail bond reform, they're starting to pitch it towards socioeconomics, so if you hold a job, you may be penalized. Whereas if you don't have one, you're going to be cut loose and released. Inappropriate, I even see it in the course I teach. Selective media coverage, the DOJ interference in local politics and local policing. The criminal is a new victim. And in some cases, they are victims, but we can't forget the initial victim that was victimized, because there are a lot of people who have socioeconomic problems and never take a dime or hurt anybody else. Border issues, which influx of drugs, and that's important to us because we're only 200 miles away from the border. So you have drugs and human trafficking, which is really a forced prostitution situation. The revolving door and catch and release. It's all over the country, but it is here in New Mexico as well. In New Mexico specifically, the catch and release program, bail bond reform, the revolving door, both of these contribute to recidivism rates that are over 30%. If you look at some of the arrests at the police department, about 33% of our arrests are the result of recidivism, and we could definitely cut our crime rate down and our workload down and maybe even our manning requirements if 33% of the crimes weren't repeated over and over again. Zero consequences continues with, you have continued findings as suspended sentences. House Bill 560 was a forfeiture law which helped defense attorneys make sure they get paid by their clients. It was based on problems in Florida. Not one of those problems were reflected here in the state of New Mexico, although we are one of 2 states that have this forfeiture hindrance to law enforcement. Qualified immunity. Civil law attorneys, defense attorneys, it's going to be a feeding frenzy. It doesn't just involve police, though. It's every municipal employee. Makes it harder to retain employees that are close to leaving, and it makes it harder to recruit. They don't feel they have any protection for doing their job. They're also going to be quite reticent about overextending themselves. Legalized cannabis. Obviously, it keeps coming up. It came up again today at the Chiefs Conference. Problems are going to be the DUIs, homelessness, revenue stream is going to be artificially represented. Schools, your schools will be inundated. It'll be more available. Cartel influence. They'll have a seat at the table determining our policies and our laws eventually. And of course, the crime rate goes up. They think that the illegal market disappears. That's not what happens. It actually flourishes. Roswell police issues. We deal with manning, chasing a replenishing workload. It's like the crime here is like the aquifer. It completely regenerates itself, and I've already explained that prior to why this keeps happening. The recruitment and retention is also difficult due to a shrinking pool of candidates. But we shop at home. Most of our candidates are right here, and we've actually pushed our efforts that way. And most of you can see the reflection of that in our manning now, who we have. Federal partnerships. We definitely rely heavily on our federal partnerships, and this is due to the court system. If we get these criminals into a federal prosecution situation, they're not back on the street. So, community has stepped up here in Roswell. The canine donations, we actually had 2 donors just walk out the door. I am very grateful. That program is part of our town continuum. We want to address the drug problem here. That's the root of most of our problems, if not all of our problems. And I want to point out that there was a time about 12 months ago or so where we had some problems, or we had forecasted for marches and protests, and it didn't really materialize here in the city of Roswell. And that's based on the people here in Roswell, who we have and how they support law enforcement. And I'm grateful for that as well. But there were definitely different communities which that flourished, and different communities like this one where they didn't. City management has also stepped up, and I don't want that to be forgotten. A continuous search to put us in another facility. Doesn't have to be a brand new one. We're looking at opportunities here in the city. We've been purchasing used patrol units over the past 12 months. And I know the budget's tight, and I know the taxpayer pays out of their pocket, and things are tough with COVID. And we got funding. The city, without me asking, provided us with money to buy 14 more police units. Again, I'm very grateful, and I speak on behalf of the police department. The second thing they did was we were going to half our tasers, which are non-lethal use of force, and we were going to half that and, basically do what we had to do, and the city stepped up and got us the full load that we needed. So, again, I'm appreciative, but I want to make sure that as I, toot the horn here, I want to make sure that we know that all parties involved are contributing. Your police department is halfway through the CLEAR accreditation process, which will be one of 3 nationally accredited agencies here in the state of New Mexico. Not a state accreditation, will be nationally accredited. Grant applications, that's got us our laser shot, which I'll bring up later on, our LPRs, our SWAT equipment. And I don't want to get past the fact that some of our crime has dropped. It's dropped every year, actually, except for 1 year it went up, but then it's continued to drop after that. But we put the right person in the right seat as far as this neighborhood watch. We've had 1 to 3 neighborhood watches, a neighborhood that gets together, talks about what's going on, keep an eye on each other, yada, yada. Well, we have 18 now. Senior Sergeant Grace Fresquez has taken this by the horns, and she's done a fantastic job. But that is going to pay dividends down the road when you have your community looking out for each other and you have more people on the team than against the team. I already said something about we've updated our MOUs. The radio situation, often we have the question about the radio situation. We've gone to complete simulcast, and we've eliminated a lot of those problems that have been here at least since I've been here, probably beyond, with these dead spots in town. So the radio communications have improved. Of course, we'll always have issues with technology. I'm not going to say it's utopia yet. We have a drone program in place, and I have 6 members of the drone team certified through FAA, and this is another Our Town initiative where it helps us with the drugs, it helps us with everything. As a matter of fact, it's only limited by our imagination and what we can use the drone for. We're in the process of purchasing robots. This is with auction money. Old used equipment that's past its usefulness, the money we've used that to buy robots, or we're in the process of purchasing the robots. The application for the Roswell Police Department Police Academy, is in process. It's been submitted, and I'm supposed to be presenting the beginning of next year. It'll be February or March, I believe. CID clearance rate, I want to make sure I hit this. Our criminal investigations division, often you don't see the work. They're in plain clothes. They're picking up the ball after patrol is left. A couple of things I want to point out. Sergeant Crane has been there since July of 2019, and in that time period, there have been 30 homicides in the city of Roswell. And out of those 30, there are only 3 open right now. That's phenomenal, absolutely awe-inspiring. The one will be cleared, will be charged next week, and the rest have been cleared by arrest or deemed justifiable homicide. The national average for homicide clearance last year was 54%. We're at 93%. And then I'll point to the most recent case. It got a lot of press, and I was even asked a couple times by several council members about it. Thursday, 11/18/21, this year, at 3 o'clock in the morning, a subject was shot and killed, and he was dropped off at the Loveless Hospital. They had no witnesses, no suspects, and really no crime scene. Yet through police work, teamwork, dedication, 12 hours later, they had a suspect in custody and the murder weapon. These things don't happen in every city. They happen because this group comes together tough and solid, and they're driven and passionate. CID and TSU were knocking out search warrants, interviews, canvassing for video, searching for the suspect, and SID came in early and started getting leads and hunting down the suspect. Through all these efforts, and in a ridiculously short amount of time, I remember him catching me in the parking lot bragging about it, and I said, that just happened this morning, and they had somebody in custody. We have one of the most dangerous people in Roswell behind bars. We've been successful over the past few years, and the CID sergeant just wanted to make sure that it was brought up, and I just want to make sure that you hear it from me as well under this circumstance of kind of a bragging session. The last thing I want to say before we go into the PowerPoint is we at the Roswell Police Department will not succeed and do not succeed in our endeavors without the ongoing support we receive from the Roswell community, from the Roswell City Council, from the Roswell Mayor, and from the city management team. It just doesn't happen. And to be perfectly honest with you, in my career, I find myself in rare air being in this circumstance, and I am very grateful. Now, we'll start with the good stuff. As long as I can get this thing figured out. I told you I'm not a tech. Yeah, can you change? You go to the front. Okay. We had uniform changes this past year, marked unit decal changes, which you may have seen. Some of that was due to saving money. License plate readers, drone program, canine program, laser shot virtual range, which is a use of force simulator or a de-escalation technique or gadget. We're constantly working on transferring some of our activities to the West 2nd facility. Command structure summary, we did change that. It's always good to know what's going on inside the police department as far as how the information trickles down and up. And our neighborhood watch expansion. Next, please. Okay, in the uniform change, we switched to an outer carrier. Some of you have seen these outer carriers. They're kind of cool looking. They're dry fit uniforms. They wick the wetness underneath. The outer carrier takes the weight off their waist. Now, I'm a dinosaur. I had my stuff in the 80s. The leather was heavier. It was a wheel gun. I had the rounds everywhere. The troops we have now are into comfort as well. They want the stuff distributed, the weight distributed on the vest. It reduces stress, pressure, hits lower, and allows for additional carrying of equipment. You'll see some of the pictures next. Go to the next one. Traditional uniform is on the left-hand side. That's Sergeant Dylan Thomas, and on the right-hand side is Travis Reese. He's got the newer uniform. If you can't see that as well, you can see the overcarrier. And actually, if you look, the badge on the top is a plastic material, a synthetic material, so the $90+ badge doesn't get beat up as bad, which is nice. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Now you see the way they're set up on the waist is subdued quite a bit as far as the amount of equipment put on it. Most of it's spread out onto the chest, and then it just gives you some side angles. And again, another side angle for a look at it. Next. Okay. Marked unit decals. We went to a more simpler design. Some of the ones we have now, we did them in pieces too. We have just the block letters, and I don't want these cars to look like they're on a movie set where it's generic. So we're going to have a blue stripe through them. We had some ghosting, and there was nobody brought a complaint forward, but you have to be careful about with your marked units being appropriately marked so people can see it from all over the place. The lights help us, but so we came off of some. We're going to have some ghost cars, but most of them we're going to have the standard markings so people can tell and see when it's coming. That part of that also diminishes activity when a marked unit pulls in, and that's a look of real plain ones. That we're going to leave those, but we're going to put some type of blue line. We're looking at those things now. Next. This is a license plate reader. Not giving up the locations, but we have two of them. They pick up the license plates, they read them, and they send them into we're actually going to a national database. Right now, the way they're set up is the troops have the application in their phones. So, and in the morning, we can add them, the license plates that we're looking for, and you put them in that database. So if it flashes, it'll notify everybody who has them. Next picture, please. So the license plate readers, there are two locations in the city. They capture the vehicles traveling up to 50 miles an hour, which is perfect inside the city because nobody should be driving faster than that. Operates both day and night. They're solar powered. Takes 3 photographs per second. Receives real-time alerts. The next slide will show kind of what the pictures we get, what we can expect. All right, I covered it. There you go. That's a picture from one of the license plate readers. The system test was done where the license plate through a police unit was entered into the LPR hot list, and when the unit drove through the LPR range location, it captured the plate. It gets it's a pretty good picture if you take a look at that. Next, please. Drone program. We have 2 drones that we bought them with grant money. One of them can do everything. It has a payload. It's infrared, thermal imaging. We actually we had it up in the air recently. We had a guy running through a field, and the drone went out. It was 200 yards in the air, and went out and picked up the thermal imprint, the heat signal of the guy, and we were able to direct our troops. You could see them coming up on it. They went right on me. He was ducked down, then he ran. So, I mean, and again, the applications for this drone are only limited by our own imagination, and the guys are taking them out quite a bit. And the reason why we have so many assigned to it is so there isn't a time where we don't have access to the drone. We have to call somebody in. We have people spread out all over the place with them. Next, please, there. Comes equipped with camera that has 220 times or 200 times zoom. The pictures we saw is like you can see all the way out into the ocean. We had a picture of a boat from the thing up in the air. It's unbelievable. It doesn't have to be on top of somebody. You won't even know you're being watched. Every time an operator tails or photographs, the camera takes 3 photographs, 1 picture using magnification, 1 picture of an aerial perspective or a bird's eye view, and the other one's in thermal vision. So it's a great tool for us. We also have a smaller one. It doesn't have all the capabilities of the large one, but it'll go 63 miles an hour. The other thing these will do is they'll lock onto a vehicle and they'll follow it. So it's just the capacities are unbelievable. It's a great tool. Next one, please. The drone also has the ability to track vehicles. Once locked on, it will stay with the target vehicle. The drone operator can be completely hands-free while the drone is tracking the targeted vehicle. Drones can also be used for special events. You'll see some pictures of that. Overwatch has extra security measures or just to provide a great video feed of the event. So some of the other department heads have asked if they can use the drone for pictures and stuff like that, and that's what it's there for, as long as it's not being called into service. This was I forget the name of it. I remember the senior moment. We had everyone there, the night out, national night out, and that was the picture. We had our drone up, taking a picture of it in the other parking lot. Next picture, please. Canines. We have our canine units. We have 4 dogs. We had 3 through donations. We got another one that was a little older, but when we hired an officer, they came with a dog. That dog is now being aged out. She's done. Her teeth are starting to go and everything, but a drug dog lasts longer than a bite dog as well. There's just a little more information. Our dogs are not bite dogs, but they will defend the handler. But they are not bite dogs. They are search dogs, and they are drug dogs. They're also not certified in marijuana. We saw this coming in 2017, and what the issue that they have, if the dog is certified in marijuana, they have a throwdown bag of marijuana in the car, throws off the probable cause. You can still use a marijuana dog if you use it, and legally, tell me if I'm wrong, but if you use a series of questions and you get the operator to talk, sometimes you can get past it. But our dogs are not certified with it because it's a legal substance now. So they're good on everything else. This is another initiative for the our town that we wanted to go out and do. We do have the 4th dog in training right now, and that one wasn't donated, but there was a nice caveat with that. That dog can be used for breeding purposes. It's a championship line dog, and we get the pick or the second of the litter if they have to use our dog. So we'll perpetuate our program. All right, canine units, 16. This is some of the numbers, if you look at it, what these dogs have pulled down. Now, the good news is that's a lot of material. The bad news is we're scratching the surface. So just to let you know what's out there. But this is not a good place to come through. It's not as good a place as it was before because we are quite proactive about it with our drones, with our dogs, with our drug units. I mean, we're in the other, well, we'll get into the other stuff later. The license plate readers help too. Here's another little summary of the canine unit. This is one of the scenarios. Made a traffic stop coming into town from El Paso. was tracked by DEA. The canine alerted the presence of narcotics. As a result, alert and subsequent investigation, 5 kilograms of cocaine were seized with an appropriate street value of $70,000. You know, when they talk about the cocaine, it gives me a flashback to the 80s. Canine officers made the traffic stop. If you don't want me to read it through, you can see the incident. But 20 pounds, methamphetamine of 20 pounds and $250,000 of street value. Significant. So the dogs are making a big difference. And then there's another one here, canine alerted presence of narcotics in the vehicle during the subsequent search warrant. Both heroin and 1,000 fentanyl pills were seized. As you all know, fentanyl is the new killer. This will finish you off quick. It's even limited some of our field testing because you have to be careful, because if you get it into your open pores or your eyes, the moisture in your eyes, you may need to be brought back with a Narcan shot because it's that addictive and destructive. Next slide, please. Laser shot simulations. I don't have any pictures of this. What this is the use of force simulator or de-escalation technique trainer. 972 scenarios. Each scenario has 4 or 5 different outcomes that could happen. And we have ranges, training, all kinds of stuff. We've had the mayors come down, and he went at it with his Weaver style. And I remember I was a Weaver too before I came to Roswell. We had the fire chief in there. I don't know where he is, but he's
They have no idea what you're talking about, Chief. They don't know what Weaver is.
This is Weaver, this is isosceles. But anyways, it's a great tool. Again, this was grant money. And, you know, in a world of extreme scrutiny for use of force, this is a fantastic tool to make you a little less jittery when you get into the situation, give us better training. Another thing this will be really nice for is I'd like to see our city councilors come down and try it. We have it's a great tool, and it'll give us it's like doing a ride-along, only with a much more serious scenario and a more protected environment. So, next slide, please. So here we are at the Neighborhood Watch. Sergeant Grace Fresquez, who's one of our senior sergeants. We started with 1 to 3 neighborhoods. She's at 18 now. That includes a business district. She's involved with various memberships. She's involved with everything, and her tentacles, for lack of better expression, are bringing us all together. And that's what we need. We need that interaction, that non-enforcement interaction, to build up communication and trust on a constant daily basis. We can't do it alone. We need the community to be involved, just like we have the whole city helping us out. And at our town is a cross-section of different departments within the city. We need the help, and we embrace the help. And it's all for the same goal, to make our city the best it can be. And any questions?
All right. Thank you, Chief. Counselors, questions or comments for Chief Smith? I think you've overwhelmed him.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, Counselor Stubbs.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to hold a public hearing on and adopt proposed substitute ordinance 21-13, which is the second amendment to Chapter 27 of the Roswell City Council relating to cannabis, and to include the actual ordinance, which was approved to advertise last month.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to have a public hearing and vote on proposed ordinance 2113. Mr. Mavers.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. This is amendment number 2 to our cannabis ordinance. This is a significant amendment to the ordinance, but it continues to build out the entire ordinance. We are anticipating that there will be one other substantive change to update to the ordinance coming to your way sometime in January, and then after that, only minor changes depending on how the state moves forward on their end. Just as a reminder, it was back in August that you adopted Ordinance 2109, which established the new section, and 2109 created the general framework for Chapter 27, which month by month we've been filling out. City staff is still getting information, and we expect to continue to get information from the Cannabis Control Division of the state of New Mexico. Just to give you an update here real quick, the information that we got just yesterday, I believe, is that the state is still debating whether or not to begin issuing provisional licenses. They may have gone the opposite direction on that at this point. We hope to hear more on that soon. Ordinance 2113 as Amendment 2 enhances sections of Chapter 27. It does predominantly consist of sections concerning municipal operational permits and requirements, and the additional considerations, though, include the ability to deal with on-site consumption permits, cannabis special events permits. We've added some additional definitions, and then we do have our zoning and development standards, as opposed to just creating the zoning development. Article 2, of course, is our definition sections. We've added a handful of definitions. One of the differences between the substitute ordinance, which Councilor Stubbs pointed out that you're going to be voting on tonight, the substitute that you have in front of you dated, I believe it's dated today, the 21-1209. There were a number of definitions, a couple of which we had to pull out because we weren't moving as forward as quickly with our Clean Air Act. There were references to the Clean Air Act that had to come out. We had a number of definitions that were able to be consolidated into a single definition. And then there were a few definitions also that we decided we could go ahead and live with the definitions pursuant to the state legislation. Article 6, we define how to go about obtaining a cannabis project application, operational permits for both commercial and industrial development. In the event that someone violates their permit or their license, procedures for surrender and appeal of those license, emergency contact information, and then liability and indemnification. Article 7, minor changes. We have found some errors in a previous version that we had to correct for the CCAN and ICAN designations. Article 8, operational standards, building standards, and other restricted premise access. Article 9, operational permits. Again, additional references to that. Article 10, we do have to address the issue of on-site cannabis consumption, and that is all of Article 10. Article 11, special event permits. Now, the legal committee did vote to recommended 3-0 at their October meeting, and the city council did vote 6-1 at your November meeting to hold this public hearing and consider the adoption of the ordinance. At this point, staff stands ready for questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so therefore, if there is anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to proposed ordinance 2113, even if you did not sign up to speak, you may do so at this time. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition? Let the record reflect that no one chose to speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of proposed ordinance 2113? Anyone in support? Let the record reflect that no one chose to speak in support. Do we have anyone online at all? That's what I was thinking. So we have no one online to speak either in support or in opposition. Please have the record reflect that. At this point, I'll go to the council. Councilors, questions or comments? Once again, I will reiterate what Councilor Stubbs and Mr. Mavers has said. The actual item we're acting upon is the substituted version, which is the hard copy you have in front of you, which was what was approved for authorization to advertise the last time. I got that right, Mr. Patterson? All right. Any more questions or comments? Are you, Counselor, do you want to know? All right. At this point, I will ask for a roll call vote. A yes or aye approves proposed ordinance 2113. A no or nay rejects it. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Best? Yes. Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Kinnard?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
No.
Counselor Lopez?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez? Motion passes with 6 affirmative votes. Counselor Sanchez, I need you to press your, there you go. There you go. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item number 5. Ladies and gentlemen, items 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all interrelated. Prior to the motion by Counselor Stubbs, I've asked Mr. Patterson to explain these 4 proposed ordinances prior to us going into the public hearing. Mr. Patterson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. So you all will remember from last time when you looked at these 4 ordinances to authorize to advertise that what we're doing here is we have 4 companies that provide solid waste collection and disposal services within the city. Those are Waste Management of New Mexico, Whitcamp Disposal Company, Southwestern Disposal, and Desert West Enterprises. Remember all those. Okay, so each of these is a separate ordinance, but they all do effectively the same thing. Basically, under city code, the city has the exclusive power to engage in solid waste services. However, per state statute, we do have the ability to contract that out and to set the terms and conditions and fees relating to private contractors doing that, because we do have that exclusive authority. However, because solid waste collection is what they call a public utility, meaning that it's a service that is essential to the public and they cannot do without, it is subject to special oversight by the city in our exclusive power. And therefore, we have to grant a franchise under state statute. A franchise ordinance is required. The franchise ordinance becomes effective after 30 days after it's adopted, subject to the possibility that someone could file a petition challenging the award of the franchise, in which case, and it's not one person, they have to get a certain percentage of the registered voters to sign the petition, and they file that within the 30 days with the city clerk, and then we would actually have to have a referendum election on whether or not to adopt that franchise. I will say that the way that we're drafting these franchise ordinances is to grant the franchise in a general sense, however, make the actual exercise of the right to engage in the services subject to a franchise agreement, which then follows on after the franchise ordinance comes into effect. The idea being there that a franchise ordinance lasts for 25 years, and so we don't want to put all of that, all of those details about how the services will be rendered into the ordinance, because those change slowly, whereas an agreement can be updated basically on an annual basis as or on a 5-year basis, depending on how we draft the contract, and allows us to go into substantially more detail with regard to issues like indemnification and franchise fees and all those types of things that are more appropriate in a contractual agreement rather than in an ordinance. And so I will say that most of these, in fact, all of these are, with the exception of waste management, have both either expired ordinances or we can't find an ordinance for them, and the agreements that we have with them are boilerplates that go back several decades and are not up to date with regard to what the kinds of contracts that we're drafting these days. So having now, once we adopt these ordinances, the plan is that we will follow up with new agreements with these guys and have agreements that are more robust in terms of our ability to oversee what they're doing and for them to provide a more quality service. I will say also that these are all business commercial collection. There's no residential. The city does all residential collection, so these are for commercial entities. Okay, so the first one, waste management, they do have an agreement from 2017. However, their franchise ordinance expired, so we will re-up their franchise ordinance if you vote in the affirmative, and then we still may look at drafting a new agreement with them because it is boilerplate from quite a while ago. All of these, I will say, also were approved by legal committee unit 3-0, and that you'll remember that we did all of these for a public hearing last month, and council voted unanimously to advertise each of these ordinances and to hold a public hearing today. Whitcamp is the second company. They have a 2002 agreement, and we are not able to locate that they have a duly adopted franchise ordinance at all, looking through the city clerk's records. So this proposed ordinance would authorize the franchise. We'll skip that. Southwest Disposal, they have an agreement from the 90s and a franchise ordinance also from the mid-90s, both of which are, I think, expired. And so we would like to both renew their franchise ordinance and then follow up, as I said, with a new agreement. And then the last one is Desert West Enterprise, I think. So this one is from 2011 agreement, no franchise ordinance that we can locate. So for all four of these, staff is asking that you hold a public hearing and consider adopting each of these franchise ordinances. And I would stand for any questions.
At this point, I will call on Counselor Stubbs to do the formal motion for item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to hold a public hearing and adopt Ordinance 21-14, granting a franchise for solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services within the City of Roswell to Waste Management of New Mexico Incorporated.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to approve proposed ordinance 2114. As this is an ordinance, this is a public hearing. If there is anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this ordinance, even if they have not signed up to speak, they may do so at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to proposed ordinance 2114? Anyone? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in opposition. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of proposed ordinance 2114? In support. Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in support. We have one person online. Anyone online wishing to speak on this matter? Let the record reflect we have no one online wishing to speak on this matter, either in support or in opposition. Councilors, questions or comments? Councilor Oropesa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I ask the questions, I just want to make sure that I understand what rules we're playing by. Since last meeting, I was cut off and not allowed to speak. Since it appears like you, Mr. Mayor, suggested that we have a rule that limit a counselor to 25 to 30 minutes. And I have looked at our rules and regulations and ordinances and what have you, and I have not found anything that limits a city councilor to any particular time. We do have the audience that is limited to 3 minutes. So I just want to make sure that I understand that if I take the floor, that I will be given the allotted time necessary to make my point. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I will ask the questions pertaining to this particular ordinance. I don't understand why there are 4 companies that we need to hire, if you will, in order to do the pickup in the community, even though it is business related and not residential. So can staff give me an answer as to why is it that we need to have four companies applying for an ordinance? And is it limited to just these 3, or is it open to anybody else that comes into the community and be able to apply for an ordinance as well? And how does the process work if they are the ones that are going out and servicing the commercial community and not the residential?
Well, first of all, I'll quibble with you a little bit, your use of the word hire, because we're not hiring them. They pay us for the privilege to engage in these services within the city. So we collect a franchise fee from them. We're not hiring them. That being said, the 4 that we have currently, And I say that because this is not, they didn't apply within, my time being here. They've been doing this, as I kind of intimated, for decades within the city. And as to how they originally became franchisees in the 90s or before, I couldn't speak to that. I don't know the process, what it was back then that they got those agreements in place. So we're kind of dealing with the status quo. These companies are already here, they're already providing services, and so what we're trying to do here is clean up the paperwork effectively. We've got companies that are exercising a franchise, but we've got expired ordinances and expired agreements, and so what we're trying to do is make sure that legally speaking, the correct ordinances and contracts and agreements are all executed so that we are up to date in terms of what we're actually doing. I can't speak to any kind of formal policy with regard to how franchisees may request, or potential franchisees can request to be added, so to speak. I'll remind you that last year we did have a new franchisee, and that was J and A Recycling. And they simply came to the city and requested a meeting and sat down with us, and we discussed it, and it kind of went from there. So it's an informal process right now, but it's just if somebody's interested in a franchise, they come and have a meeting with Abraham or whomever, and we kind of look at what they're proposing and whether it's in the best interests of the city and the needs of the city right now, and then we kind of go from there.
Okay. I apologize for the word hire. It was the wrong word to use. And how much money do we receive from each franchise?
Under the current agreements, it's 7% of their gross receipts is what I believe, is what I recall. And that's, again, that's not something that was come up with by current staff. That's the legacy of what has been done, the rate that was set back when these agreements were originally put in place, and we have not changed them since that time.
Do we have any problems with any of them being late on payments or anything like that?
It has happened, but it's been resolved when those, in my time here, I'm aware of one or two occurrences where franchise fees or other things were late, but I don't remember the details of it at this point. But I do recall that we resolved it with a letter and a discussion with them, and they brought it current.
Is there anything in the ordinance that addresses that issue if there's some problems with it?
So that would be something that we are going to put into the agreement, and we'll bring the agreements forward next time. We'll be sending those through legal and for y'all to review as soon as those are ready. We're working on those with Abraham and the contracts administrator right now. And so that's going to have provisions for if they, either don't pay franchise fees or they're, something's, wrong with the way that they're providing service according to how we're requiring them, we can, suspend or revoke their franchise. And so that's the concept, is that although the franchise ordinance lasts for 25 years, through an agreement, we have the ability to basically pull their right to exercise the franchise on a short-term basis if they are breaching the agreement that we have with them. That's their exercise of the franchise is contingent upon them following that agreement.
So how do they get their clientele? Do they go out to the community and try and get the clientele, or the clientele comes to them, or?
That I don't know. They are a private business. I don't know what they do to get new clients. That they set their own rates and do their own advertising and things like that. We don't get involved in how they get new clients.
And if there's issues with the service, are we responsible somehow to address those?
Yeah. So on the one hand, this is a relationship between two companies effectively, and so if they get into a disagreement, they have the remedies that they have in terms of their relationship. But if there's something that the solid waste company is doing that violates the terms of the franchise, either ordinance or agreement, and we become aware of it, we have the power to address that with them through the mechanism that I mentioned before, which is to suspend or revoke the agreement and thereby basically cut off their ability to do business.
So if you do cut them off, obviously this is going to have an impact on the clientele that they service.
Correct.
And so if you cut them off for 2-3 months, or I don't know what the process is, but I'm just making an assumption that it could happen that they be cut off for 2-3 months. So what happens to the clientele?
Well, this is the benefit of having 4, is that they have the option to go to another company.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that exhausts my list. Since this is a proposed ordinance, I will ask for a roll call vote. A yes or aye approves proposed ordinance 2114. A no or nay rejects it. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa?
No.
Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Kennard?
Yes.
Counselor Moore? Counselor Lopez?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez? Motion passes 6-2.
6-2 or 7-1?
I'm sorry. 6-2, because we have Roebuck who's absent and also Perry's who's absent.
Yeah, but the vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
Oh, no. Counselor Moore, how did you vote? Did you vote no or yes? I misunderstood you. I apologize. 7-1.
Okay. Fair enough. Moving on to item number 6, Counselor Stubbs, I'll ask for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to hold a public hearing and adopt proposed ordinance 2115, granting a franchise for solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services within the city of Roswell to Whitcamp Disposal Company.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to have a public hearing and vote on proposed ordinance 2115. Ladies and gentlemen, again, as with the previous matter, we must repeat this process to ensure compliance with state statute. If you have not signed up to speak on this proposed ordinance, you may do so at this time. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to proposed ordinance 2115? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of proposed ordinance 2115? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in support. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing none, let the record reflect no one online chose to speak on this matter. Councilors, any discussion or debate on proposed ordinance 2115? Councilor Moore, you have the floor.
I just had one question in general about that 7%, and I guess we probably could have talked to one individually. Is that 7% that you mentioned, is that across the board all the time? Or if he wanted to increase, or, I don't know, increase, like, would that be when we review the agreements, at that time would be able to, because you said it's been for a long time, so I'm just kind of wondering how that 7% came about.
Yeah, and I can't answer where the 7% came from. I think I was in like the 4th grade when that rate was determined. So I can't answer that, but I will say that you are correct. We are going to bring forward agreements, and the agreement will have a section that says franchise fees, and that section will set forth the terms and conditions of what they have to pay and when they pay it. And if the council wants to review that percentage at that time and take amendments to what we're doing, that's within your power.
All right, thank you.
All right, I have Councilor Lopez. Councilor Lopez, you have the floor.
Just a general question on that 7% as well. Does that include their disposal fee at our solid waste department?
No, the tipping fees are a separate issue. So the 7% is just out of their gross receipts, and then if they want to go dump at our facility, then they have to pay whatever the commercial rate is for that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, that exhausts my list. At this time, I will ask for a roll call vote, since this is an ordinance. A yes or aye approves proposed ordinance 2115. A no or nay rejects it. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa?
No.
Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Kennard?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Lopez?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez? Motion passes 7-1.
Thank you. At this point, I will call on Counselor Stubbs for a motion for item number 7. Counselor Stubbs.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to hold a public hearing and adopt proposed ordinance 2116, granting a franchise for solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services within the city of Roswell to Southwest Disposal Corporation.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to have a public hearing and vote on proposed ordinance 2116. Ladies and gentlemen, I will repeat myself again. This is a public hearing. Even if you have not signed up to speak on this matter, you may do so. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to proposed ordinance 2116? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Let the record reflect that no one chose to speak in opposition. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of proposed ordinance 2116? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in support. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak on this matter? Let the record reflect that no one online has chosen to speak on this matter. Counselors, questions or debate on this matter? Seeing none on my list, I will now ask for a roll call vote. A yes or aye approves proposed ordinance 2116. A no or nay rejects it. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa?
No.
Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Kennard?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Lopez?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez? Motion passes 7-1.
All right, thank you. At this point, I will call on Counselor Stubbs to make a motion for item number 8. Counselor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to hold a public hearing and adopt proposed ordinance 2117, granting a franchise for solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services within the city of Roswell to Desert West Enterprises, LLC.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to hold a public hearing and vote on proposed ordinance 2117. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Even if you have not signed up to speak on this matter, you may do so. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition of proposed ordinance 2117? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of 2117? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in opposition. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of proposed ordinance 2117? Anyone wishing to speak in support? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in support. Is there anyone online wishing to speak on this matter? Let the record reflect there was no one online wishing to speak on this matter. Counselors, I have no one on my list requesting to speak, so therefore I will call for a roll call vote. A yes or aye approves proposed ordinance 2117. A no or nay rejects it. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa? No. Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Kennard?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Lopez?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez? Motion passes 7-1.
All right, thank you. Next up is item number 9, Counselor Best.
I make the motion to approve the PO to IPR Limited of Albuquerque, New Mexico to microsurface streets citywide in the amount of $500,000.
I have a motion by Counselor Best and a second by Counselor Foster to award a purchase order to IPR for microsurfacing. Mr. Nahar.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What you have before you is to approve the PO to IPR for our annual microsurfacing in the amount of $500,000 at the October City Council meeting. It was agreed to spend 100,000 per ward, so 500,000. Infrastructure voted, recommended 3-0, based on the list that was presented on October 14th, 2021. And I stand for any questions.
All right, I have Counselor Stubbs. Counselor Stubbs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment that on page 48 of our packet, which is the preliminary list for Ward 3, that the first 3 streets that are on this list are no longer in Ward 3.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do about it, but it seems like Ward 3 might be slighted a bit. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. All right. I have no one else on my list at this time to speak. I will ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the purchase order. A no or nay rejects it. Please activate your vote box when you respond. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Next up is item number 10, Counselor Best.
I make a motion to approve of the award of ITB 20-003 for the bid of the Hondo River Trail rehabilitation.
ITB 22003.
That's what I said.
No, 20. All right. So I have a motion by Counselor Best and a second by Counselor Moore to approve the bid for ITB 22-003. Counselors, we have a bit of an odd situation here. I will call on Mr. Nahar and Mr. Patterson. Go ahead and explain the project, Mr. Nahar.
Mayor and council, the motion is to approve, the recommendation is to reject, so your vote that I'm requesting is to vote no, thereby you will reject it, and we will satisfy the New Mexico DOT requirements that have asked us to reject it, because it did not, J&H did not meet the qualifications at that time. I will tell council that J&H is qualified. We are planning to rebid it and advertise it on Sunday, and I stand for any questions. And Parker, did I get that right?
All right. Mr. Patterson, you want to explain why we're doing it this way?
Yeah, and I apologize for the confusion. This is one of those persnickety rules of procedure that is trying to make things clearer, but in a situation like this can make it less clear. So Robert's rules requires that all motions be what we call a positive motion and not a negative motion. In other words, you don't ever do a motion to not do something. You only do a motion to do something, and if you don't want to do it, you vote against it. So here in this case, our options are to award it or to not award it. So rather than vote to not award it, which would be an improper motion under Robert's rules, we're asking that you have a motion to award it and then vote it down, because that's what we really want, is to reject it.
All right. Any questions, counselors? Once again, staff is asking us to reject this, so a no vote is what is being requested.
That is correct, Mayor. I'm requesting a no vote.
And so I will be calling for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the bid. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay.
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 Thank you, council.
All right, and the vote is 1 to
No, he said no.
he said.
You have to push your button.
All right, thank you. Thank you, counselors, for being indulgent. That was a little bit of a curveball tonight. Next up, item number 11, Counselor Best.
I make a motion to approve the award of Third and Orchard water line repairs for large diameter valve replacements, line stop, and other New Mexico trapped masters, Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the amount of $188,314.68, which includes tax.
I have a motion by Counselor Best and a second by Counselor Moore to award the contract for large diameter valve replacements to New Mexico Tap Masters. Mr. Sanchez.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here asking you to consider award of the Third and Orchard waterline repairs for large diameter valve replacements, line stops, and others to New Mexico Tap Masters of Albuquerque, New Mexico in the amount of $188,314.68, which includes the gross receipts tax. Quotes were obtained from vendors qualified under RFP 21-005, line stop and valve insertions. Infrastructure Committee recommended 3-0 approval at their meeting on November 22nd. On this slide right here is a picture of an actual line stop where they weld on a steel sleeve. They cut a hole in the line and they isolate that concrete cylinder pipe in order to stop the flow of water, keep customers in service both upstream and downstream of the valve insertion. With that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Sanchez? Seeing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the award of the water line repair large diameter valve replacements to New Mexico Tap Masters of Albuquerque. A no or nay rejects the award. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. I have Councilor Moore voting no. Is that correct? No. Councilor Moore was saying yes. And
We'll change it.
all right. Councilors, please understand, if I am not questioning the reason for your vote. Sometimes we all touch the wrong button. I want to make sure we're clearly and accurately reflecting your intentions on these. So that is why I want to clarify things.
And just so you know, I don't always look at that screen because I'm listening to what you say.
Yep. All right, next up is item number 12, Councilor Best.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the award of variable frequency drive insulation, well monitor, casing, building extension and upgrades at RW3 to Alpha Southwest in the amount of $69,936.02. I do not have a 3 on there, but that's your fault. There's 369,000.
Yes. All right. Okay, I have a motion by Councilor Best.
Damn it.
And a second by Councilor Foster to award a variable frequency drive installation, well motor, casing, building extension upgrades at RW3 to Alpha Southwest. Mr. Sanchez.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, here asking you to consider award of variable frequency drive installation at Roswell Air Center well number 3 to Alpha Southwest in the amount of $369,936.02. Procurement shall be through utilizing the City of Las Vegas, New Mexico maintenance contract, which was issued under an RFP process. The installation is a continuing work to upgrade all of the 20 city wells. The Infrastructure Committee recommended 3-0 approval at their meeting on November 22nd, 2021. This kind of this is a picture of the VFD installation on one of our wells. As you know, we've already done 7 wells so far. This reduces a lot of stress on the system. It slowly ramps up and slows down the wells whenever it kicks on the motor, which reduces stress to the system, the piping, the valves, everything else. And it also greatly reduces the electrical consumption, so it saves a lot of power also. And with that, I just stand for any questions.
Councilors, any questions or comments for Mr. Sanchez? I have one quick question. This is probably for Mr. Fuentes. This is being paid for out of the Water Enterprise Fund or the Air Center Enterprise Fund?
Mr. Mayor and councilors, the funding is in the Water Enterprise Fund.
All right, thank you. I will at this point ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the award of the project to Alpha Southwest in the amount specified. A no or nay rejects the awarding. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any,
Aye.
any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 13, Counselor Best.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve award of ITB-22-010, the South Sunset Avenue Pavement Rehabilitation Project to J7H Services Incorporated of Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the amount of $1,107,125.20. That does not include GRT.
It does include.
It does. I got a cheat sheet from the city clerk. I'm blaming her tonight for this.
And that's J&H, not J7H.
J&H. All right.
Man, you don't get cookies anymore.
All right. So I have a motion by Counselor Best and a second by Counselor Foster to award a South Sunset Rehabilitation Project ITB 22-00010 to J&H Services. Mr. Nahar.
Mayor, Council, this project was on the approved budget, on our road project budget. J&H was the low bidder. Infrastructure did recommend it 3-0. And just to give you the limits, this is the mill and fill job, just like we did on Washington. We just completed on Washington. The limits on this project will be South Sunset, Brasher to Poe, and McGaffey to Walnut. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Nahar? Hearing none, seeing none, I will ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the award of the pavement rehabilitation project to J&H Services. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay.
Thank you, Council.
Seeing none, hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Ladies and gentlemen, items number 14 through 25 were approved when the agenda was adopted as consent items. Again, item 24 was removed and will be heard at the January City Council meeting. We will now go to item number 26. Counselor Best.
Okay, I make a motion to approve Resolution 21-74, supporting the reclassification of 911 telecommunicators of the Pecos Valley Regional Communications Center as first responders.
Okay, I have a motion by Counselor Best and a second by Counselor Foster to approve 21-74. Ms. Best.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight to speak about a subject that I'm very passionate about concerning some people who I have the highest affection and respect for, and that's the telecommunicators of Pecos Valley Regional Communications Center. I always forget my slide. So a little bit of background. The Homeland Security Act of 2002 defines a first responder as individuals who, in the early stages of an incident, are responsible for the protection and preservation of life, property, evidence, and the environment. Sounds like some 911 operators and emergency dispatchers. Currently, the public safety telecommunicators, which is the fancy name for dispatchers, which is your 911 operators and your emergency dispatchers, they're classified as administrative support personnel by the Standard Occupational Classification System. There's a Senate Bill 1175 and a House Bill 2351 on this subject. It's called the 911 Saves Act. What this act would do is require the reclassification of public safety telecommunicators from administrative support personnel to protective services personnel, which is a much more accurate representation of what they do. This reclassification, at the very least, would enable data gathering and research that may lead to better programs and support for the dedicated men and women who perform these instrumental services for our communities and first responders, things like mental health programs and support programs for them that we don't have the opportunity to have right now. So with that, I stand for any questions. This is a resolution of local support. There's no fiscal with this right now. If it passes in the House and the Senate, there may be more. I may come back before you later because it will affect retirement and reclassification, things like that. But this particular resolution doesn't have any of those implications. This is just an additional show of support for our communications center for the work that they do.
All right. I have Councilor Oropesa. Councilor Oropesa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a matter of clarification, when you're talking about a bill in the House and the Senate, we're talking about the federal.
Yes. So what this resolution is designed to do is a local community show of support for these, the 911 Directors Affiliate in the state of New Mexico. We're all trying to get these resolutions passed at a local level just to show our representatives that this is something that the communities want to do.
Okay, thank you.
We have no one else on the list to speak on this matter, so I will say a few brief words. I've been on the other end of the radio. Been a long time, but I've been there. I haven't forgotten how incredibly important that voice is when you're in a situation and there's nobody else around. And the only person you got is the other voice. Thank you. Thank you for your service and your team. I will ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves Resolution 21-74, excuse me. Wait a minute. Do we do a roll call on we can do a voice on the resolution. All right, thank you. A yes or aye approves Resolution 21-74. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor of Resolution 21-74, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Next up is item number 27, Councilor Foster.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for us to consider Resolution 2182 for approval, implementing an updated site drainage plan review process for all incoming residential property developments within the city of Roswell.
All right. I have a motion by Councilor Foster and a second by Councilor Best to approve Resolution 21-82. Mr. Mavers.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and council members. Resolution 2182 is designed to assist us with implementation of a particular section within the state building code and also the international building code, specific to site drainage plan requirements. We've been receiving a disproportionate amount of site drainage plans that do not meet the minimum standards imposed by the state of New Mexico, and these plans do not adhere to the minimum standards also imposed by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Federal Housing Administration. Because we were repeating many of these plans were coming in with similar deficiencies, we decided that as part of our permit streamlining program that we're putting together, that we would develop a checklist. This checklist would then be handed out to the builders in town. They would be able to follow the checklist, submit their plans, ensuring that all the items necessary for approval were on the plans. It will streamline the permit process, but it will also ensure that they meet the minimum standards imposed by the state. One of the biggest goals, again, of the Community Development Department is to establish a fast-track permitting program. When I was hired several months ago, I was told right away that one of the biggest concerns that our development community had, in particular our local contractors, was the amount of time it was taking to get projects approved. This is a step in the right direction to help us streamline that process. And Resolution 2182 is being proposed in order to expedite, consolidate, and clarify the review process for all new residential developments. This will save developers time, money, and effort. There's been an ongoing discussion between ourselves and the development community that we're asking for additional information. That is true. It will take a small amount of time for this additional information required by the state and adopted by our local ordinances for these plans to be put together. I've sat down with a number of the contractors and shown them what additional was needed. It takes about 30 minutes of additional time. What this will do for them, though, is will subtract a significant amount of plan check and review time. If they meet the standards, if they go down our plan checklist, we're looking at 24 to 48 hours turnaround time as opposed to 2 to 3 weeks of turnaround time and possible multiple plan checks. The site drainage plan checklist, attachment number 3 in your packet there, consists of a number of the current development standards, including the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Residential Code, and a copy of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development site grading and drainage guidelines. The implementation of this and the U.S. Department of HUD and FHA standards into our current site drainage plan review process will ensure that property owners of newly built homes will have the opportunity to obtain FHA insured loans. Furthermore, the proposed resolution updates the city's site drainage plan review process and will help streamline, consolidate, and clarify the process overall. Lastly, the proposed update to the city's current site drainage plan review process will help ensure new homes are safeguarded from structural, climatic, and financial risks. One of the major concerns we have here in the building and development community overall is the expansive soils situation. Following the guidelines in the Building and Development Code, as well as the FHA and HUD guidelines, you are required to ensure that the properties drain away from the house as opposed to possibly draining towards the house, thereby undermining the pad and possibly creating an expansive soil situation. We want to make sure that folks have a safe, secure home to live in for many, many years to come, and preventing expansive, the cracking and breaking of our foundations is something that is we're having to deal with almost on a daily basis. The Infrastructure Committee did review the packet and recommended 3-0 for approval of Resolution 2182 at their meeting on November 22nd. Now, staff's recommendation was that you open the public hearing tonight and that you take input from the floor, but staff has received a number of concerned citizens into our office, as well as concerns expressed by some of the development community, that we have possibly not done a good enough job of public outreach and education. Because of those concerns, and because we are cognizant of the fact that this is a change that many people are not necessarily used to, at this point staff is recommending that you continue this item until the next City Council meeting in January, and in the interim that we hold a meeting with the developer community. I believe we would like to get together on January 5th in the afternoon, and that we be allowed to meet with them, hear out their concerns, and see if there is a middle ground that we can all come to agree to.
All right. Thank you. I have a number of individuals who have signed up to speak on this matter, and at this time we will hear from them. Folks, this is how we will do it. I will call you out, ask you to come up and form a line. I'll call out the first 3 names if I can read the writing and I can pronounce the names correctly. If I don't do either correct, please forgive me. When you come up and speak, state your name clearly and your address. This is for the record so that we can establish who has spoken. You will have 3 minutes to speak on this matter. My suggestion is that if someone who has spoken before you has said essentially the same thing you wish to say, you can say, I agree with so-and-so, and I would like to add something new. So this will move us through quickly. The first 3 individuals I have on my list are Freddie Nasrallah, Frank Sanchez, and I think it's Keith Haley. So if 3 of you will kindly stand and come forward here and form a line. And I'll call, after the first gentleman is done, I'll call up the next name on the list, have him join the end of the line, so we'll move through that way. So go ahead, sir, state your name, your address, and you've got 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Freddie Nasrallah.
Pull that a little closer.
A couple of the contractors already left because we were told this was going to get tabled until a later date. And I would, I'd rather speak at the later date.
Okay, all right. But here, sir, one thing is, if you can tell us ahead of time, maybe we can address those concerns.
I mean, that's the whole point of this meeting that we're going to have on the 5th, I believe.
Okay, I got you. All right. All right, sir. Next up, I will ask for Andrew Helms. What? No. That comes behind you. You state your name and address, and you've got your 3 minutes.
My only concern is.
So could you state your name, sir?
Oh, my name is Keith Nally.
Okay.
My only concern is the added cost to the homeowner or home builder. The costs are already, astronomical. And for us to have to pay for additional plans and for, you're requiring additional education also. The drainage sites and stuff like that, they're not that easy to do. It's something we haven't been doing. Maybe a class might help.
Okay.
But the additional cost, approved plans, the additional cost of those plans, I mean, they could be upwards of, $2,500 to $3,000 or $4,000. And those are costs that homeowners just don't have. And those are the costs that come up front. And the bank doesn't pay those. So, thank you.
Okay. I don't have is Mr. Frank Sanchez, did he leave? Okay. All right, I have Andrew Helms. Is Andrew Helms here? Okay, and Theron Loving? Okay, all right. So I have Councilor Lopez. Councilor Lopez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to postpone item 27, Resolution 21-82, to the next scheduled City Council meeting.
I have a motion by Councilor Lopez and a second by Councilor Foster to postpone action on this Resolution 2182 until the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting. On that motion to postpone, Councilor Orpesa, did you want to speak on the motion to postpone?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Before taking the action, I would like to ask Mr. Mavers, what exactly is it that you're going to go back and look at and address? Or put it another way, what is the concerns that some of the contractors have come to you with?
Let me just walk through the process, if you don't mind, Counselor, real quick. What we have found is that everything that we're asking is codified and is available in the IBC or the State of New Mexico code. We adopt those. In fact, I believe just about every single one of the gentlemen that's here that has spoken has been given a copy of the code itself. You have a portion of a copy of the code itself. So what we're trying to do is work out the implementation schedule. One of the things that Mr. Nasrallah and some of the others have pointed out is that we have never, in the history of the city of Roswell, to the best of my knowledge, required a separate site drainage plan review, even though it's been part of the IBC as codified within the IBC for at least 20 years that I'm aware of. We're not asking for an additional plan. We're just asking for additional information on the plan that meets the building code requirements. We're also going to be asking that they follow a specified checklist so that everybody knows what needs to be done. But what we have to remember is that beyond our group here tonight, we're getting a number of inquiries from out of the area developers. We have to have information that we can hand out to them quickly and easily that give them guides for what we're doing. So we're trying to take on multiple issues simultaneously. But I have no problem revisiting this with the gentlemen that have spoken tonight. If they have additional ideas about how we can meet the state code and also meet the implementation requirements, I am more than willing to sit down and discuss it with them and bring it back to you next month with our findings.
Let me see if I understood you correctly. These policies or regulations have been in effect for 20 years or so?
20 years that I'm aware of in the International Building Code, yes.
And so during these 20 years that we haven't implemented these policies, are we out of compliance?
We have implemented a version of this policy. It's been a very, very simplified version of the policy. But what that does is it forces staff to make a number of different decisions that, to be quite honest with you, if we're going to affect the streamlining program, it slows us down dramatically. By putting this all in writing, by having a checklist, the developers, the builders can go and make sure that their plans meet the standards. We can go ahead and review them, hopefully over the counter. If they follow the checklist, they'll hand it to us. We'll review it on the checklist. All we have to do is check the math. We can stamp it approved, and they can go to work. We can reduce 2 to 3 weeks of turnaround time down to possibly over the counter if we've got time. Certainly no more than 24 to 48 hours. There's a dramatic improvement in our process.
The drainage system is going to be tied into the alley or?
No, this is all surface drainage. What you're going to see what you're going to see functionally in the field on these sites is we're just ensuring that the property drainage from the roof and everything else drains when it hits the ground, drains away from the house, okay, so that it doesn't undermine the foundation, so that we don't enter into an expansive soil situation. And then when it comes from around the house, drains around the house and out to the street, which is where, for all intents and purposes, the streets of the city are our drainage system. Okay. We just want to make sure that everything gets built in a manner that is going to protect the foundation and protect the investment that the builders and developers and ultimately the homeowner are making in the new homes that we're going to be constructing here.
Okay, thank you.
I have Counselor Foster, and that exhausts my list. Counselor Foster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And it was one of the gentlemen that spoke earlier said that this is going to increase their costs. This site drainage plan, does it require an engineer? Does it require?
The answer to that question is no. In fact, if you take a look in your packet, attachment number 4 here, at on the back of this, there's a section, top right-hand corner on page 2 of 2 of this document, when professional seals are required and when professional seals are not required. Okay? Single-family dwellings not more than 2 stories in height. The requirement for plans and specifications prepared by an architect and/or engineer shall not be required unless at the direction of the building official an exception is not in the best interest of public safety and health. I have conferred with our city engineer on this issue, and the traditional way that this has been handled in other jurisdictions is that as long as no more than 50 cubic yards of dirt are being imported in order to build up the pad, or you don't have more than 1 foot of fill underneath the pad, engineered drawings are not required, nor are is there any requirement for engineered fill either. It can be just traditional fill. So the 99% of the stuff that we're going to be doing, if it's in a traditional subdivision, build out like we're doing right now, will not require an engineer or an architectural stamp. This is designed to be as simple and easy as possible. And again, we're not asking for anything new or different. We're asking for things to be just a little more complete.
Thank you, I yield.
All right, I have no one else listed on my list. We have before us a motion to postpone action until the January City Council meeting. On
Mayor?
that issue, a yes or aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Kennard.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you for the contractors that had called today and those that showed up to the meeting. But I really would like to also thank Mr. Mavers for accommodating them so that they are getting the questions answered that they need to get answered in order to feel comfortable with this. So I wanted to just thank the city departments for working with them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. Sorry about that. Once again, this will be a vote on the motion to postpone. A yes or aye postpones the vote. A no or nay rejects the postponement and keeps it before this body. All those in favor of postponing action on Resolution 2182 to the next council meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, it is postponed. Next up is item number 28, Counselor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the recommendation of the Legal Committee at a vote of 3-0, I move to approve Resolution 21-78, authorizing the execution and delivery of the New Mexico Finance Authority Water Loan Grant Agreement, including Exhibit A and other attachments.
All right, I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster. Just to clarify, this item number 28 and item 29 are actually kind of joined at the hip. So, Mr. Fuentes, you want to explain it to us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. That is correct. 28, 29 are the same. They're two separate documents that are required by the Water Trust Board to be executed by the city. So the first is the Resolution 2178, and the Water Trust Board has offered a $750,000 loan grant component for the what would be phase 2 of the Edgewood area water line replacement. And this is to continue the replacement of a 12-inch water main on Cherry Street from Garten East to Atkinson. The cost is estimated at $1.1 million, $1,152,630. As I stated, this is a loan grant component, 40% loan in the amount of $300,000 and 60% grant of $450,000. The interest is at 0%. However, there is an administrative fee of 0.25%. The proposed resolution authorizes the execution and delivery of all of the documents necessary for the loan grant agreement with the Water Trust Board. Legal Committee recommended 3-0 approval at their meeting on November 18th, 2021. One other, just late last week, we did receive the final bond debt service schedule, and I just wanted to share with you what a 0.25 will mean for a $300,000 loan. And we're talking about for almost 19 years, we're only going to end up paying $8,997.43. That's a good deal. So with that, Mr. Mayor, councilors, we'll stand for any questions.
All right. Questions or comments for Mr. Fuentes? Seeing none, I will ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves Resolution 21-78 as put forward. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor of Resolution 21-78, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Item number 29, Counselor Stubbs.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Again, at the recommendation of the Legal Committee at a vote of 3-0, I move to accept the New Mexico Finance Authority Water Loan Grant Agreement to construct new water lines in the Edgewood area, including Exhibits A, B, C, D, E, and F.
All right. I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to accept the NMFA Water Loan Grant Agreement. All right, Mr. Fuentes, again.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and councilors, again, this is the other instrument that is required by the Water Trust Board to be executed by the city for this loan grant agreement, loan grant award. And with that, we'll stand for any questions.
So just help me, we have a resolution saying, yes, we want to do this, and then we actually have an agreement with the New Mexico Finance Authority saying we're doing it.
That is correct.
Under state law, that's required. There's a particular statutory authorization that allows us to enter into loans like this from NMFA. And typically, you may recall in the past, we've done it through an ordinance. However, at this funding level, I myself learned that you can actually do it through a resolution. But just like in those other cases, you pass the ordinance or resolution, and then you follow up with an agreement afterwards.
So simple. Counselors, questions or comments on this matter? Seeing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye accepts the NMFA Water Loan / Grant Agreement as presented. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Next up is item number 30. Counselor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to consider approval of the mayor's recommendations for the Roswell Museum Art Center Board of Trustees for 4-year terms. For number 1, Elisa Bagaria, partial term ending 3/31/2025, and Katie Griffo, partial term ending 3/31/2023.
I have a motion by Counselor Foster and a second by Counselor Moore to approve 2 nominees to the Roswell Museum and Art Center Board. Ms. Call.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Can you hold that a little closer so that
No.
the city clerk can hear you
She
when they do
can't.
the minutes?
She's kind of deaf because she tries to listen, but she doesn't watch the board either, so. But anyway, with that being said, I stand for any questions because luckily Counselor Foster did all my hard work.
All right. Any counselors, any questions or comments? Let the record reflect Counselor Best has stepped away momentarily. I'll call for a voice vote. All those in favor of the nominees as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, seeing none. Passes 7-0. Item number 31, Counselor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to ratify work for 3 manhole repairs that J&H Services and to J&H Services in the amount of $130,117.05.
I have a motion by Counselor Foster, by Counselor Foster, and a second by anyone?
Oh, you did?
No, it's not showing up here. So I have Counselor Moore as the second on awarding 3 manhole cover repairs, 3 manhole repairs to J&H Services, and let the record reflect Counselor Best has rejoined us. Mr. Sanchez.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here asking you requesting that you ratify repair work for 3 manholes to J&H Services in the amount of $130,117.05. During construction, operations of the North Atkinson project, which is currently underway, it was discovered that 3 manholes had severe manhole distress. A lot of the bricks were eaten up. There's a lot of gases. Some of our main feeder lines going out to the wastewater treatment plant. So a lot of them are just dirt. There's no longer any brick or anything else inside them. So we really have to reconstruct all of these manholes. And just a little bit more information, we did find one more, which will have to come to the next council meeting. We'll take a committee and council. We're going to do some bypass pumping out of that one, and we found one more. So just so you know that that's coming your way also. Infrastructure Committee recommended 3-0 approval at their meeting on November 22nd. In this picture on the slide right here, that's a picture of the pump. Whenever we do the bypass pumping on these big feeder lines, we have to pump all of the sewage from one manhole to another to bypass the manhole that we're doing the repair work. So there's one there, and there's another pump in the background that you can see to the far back, and that's pumping all the sewage around from one manhole to the next. And with that, I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. I have Counselor Foster. Counselor Foster, you have the floor.
Well, I'm wondering if these manholes being in that kind of shape could have caused for the distinct odor that used to permeate that area right north of 2nd Street on Atkinson. There used to be a strong sewer smell right there.
There's strong, and it could contribute to that. It definitely could. So once we get these manholes repaired, hopefully it'll take care of some of that issue that we had. Because I actually would drive past that also, and I could smell them odors. And this is in that general area, so hopefully it will take care of some of that problem.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Councilor.
I have no one else on my list requesting to speak. At this point, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye authorizes the repair work for 3 manholes by J&H Services as specified. A no or nay rejects that work. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Next up is item number 33, Counselor Stubbs.
Nope. 32.
32. 32, I apologize, counselors. I'm getting ahead of myself. Item number 32, Counselor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to consider award of the North Garden Sewer Replacement Project ITB 22011 to Adam Construction, Inc., Los Lunas, New Mexico, in the amount of $637,294.80, which includes GRT.
I have a motion by Counselor Foster and a second by Counselor Best to award the North Garden Sewer Replacement Project ITB 22-011 to Adam Construction Incorporated. Mr. Nahar.
Mayor, Council, that's Adame Construction.
Ah, thank you, sir.
Adame.
Adame, okay.
Yeah, it's Juan Adame, and he lives in Los Lunas. The project limits is approximately 4th Street to the Saddle Barn and the Old Glovers. Again, the amount was stated. Infrastructure recommended to 3-0. What happened, we were getting ready to do the mill and fill, and luckily, I say luckily, the sewer department found these problems. So the plan is to fix the sewer line. As you can see in the picture, this is the sewer line in the middle of the road. So we'll fix the sewer line. Once we're done with the sewer line construction, we already have a mill and fill project. We did Washington. Phase 2 would be the Garden Street, and we're on hold till we do the Garden Sewer, and then we'll mill and fill from 2nd to 5th Street. And I stand for any questions.
All right. I have no one else on my list. Let me ask real quick. Any concerns about these manholes, or have these already been worked on?
This is a smaller line. One of the problems that you have on 3rd and Atkinson, that is where all the base comes in.
Ah.
The lift station at the base goes down the railroad tracks, down to 285, along 285 to Charleston, down to Atkinson, and all the way up and dumps there at the intersection of 3rd and Atkinson, which is also picking up drainage or sewer from basically Hobbs to 3rd Street.
Okay.
So there's a lot of gray water. As far as the manholes, I've been informed they're okay, and we are going to rehab all the manholes as we go along.
Okay. Any other questions, counselors? If not, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the awarding of ITB 22-011 to Adame Construction Incorporated of Los Lunas. A no or nay rejects that award. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0.
Thank you, Council.
Now, item number 33. I apologize, counselors, for screwing that up. Counselor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The legal committee did recommend at a vote of 3-0 this agreement, but since then there's been some additional language required at this time. So I move to approve the substitute Summit Food Service LLC agreement for a portion of building number 1 at the Roswell Air Center, consisting of 1,685 square feet, more or less, for 1 year, commencing on January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022, with a possible 7 additional 1-year periods. Okay. Including all terms and conditions of the lease.
All right, I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to enter into a lease with Summit Food Services and consisting of a 1-year lease and 7 additional 1-year periods. Now, we have before us Exhibit B. I'm inclined to let Mr. Patterson, sorry about that, Mr. Patterson explain why we have this now, and then I'll call on Mr. Stark to explain the overall situation. Mr. Patterson.
Just really quickly, the amendment or the substitute that we're doing is just to the scope of work two small changes. One is to clarify that beer and wine service is subject to executing a separate liquor license lease that then has to be approved by the state as well. So before those beer and wine sales can begin, we have to get that paperwork sorted out with the state. And then the second part is just a small paragraph that clarifies that the naming rights and branding rights on the cafe and the food service operations out there are going to be owned by the city. Just based on some recent experiences out there, that was determined to be in the best interest of the city.
Okay. Mr. Stark.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. This would be a lease for Summit Food Services for the cafe in the terminal. And as I mentioned, it's a one-year lease for the area of the cafe, dining area in front of the service counter, and then the bar area as well, and the liquor lease will come along later. This is going to be a stepped-up lease where the first year of the lease would be based on a commission of 4%, and then every year after that lease, that price is going to go up to a higher commission. The second year would be 6%, the third 8%, and years 4 to 7 would be 10%. So it is a commission-based lease, and it would begin January 1st of next year. With all of that said, I would like to welcome up, with your approval, Renee Ruiz and Kim Almaguer from Summit to introduce themselves.
Go ahead, state your name.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Almaguer.
A little closer to the microphone, please.
Kimberly Almaguer.
And your position?
I am the OSM, the Operations Support Manager of Summit Food Service. I'm currently the director at Eastern New Mexico University cafeteria.
Okay. Sir?
Mayor, Council, my name is Rene Reese. I'm the district manager for Summit Food Service. I oversee New Mexico, California, and Arizona, and I'm the support services for Kim here in Roswell, New Mexico.
Okay. And you are the food service at the college, as I understood, correct?
Yeah, we have multiple locations here in Roswell. We do Eastern New Mexico University, the New Mexico Youth Challenge, Aliyah, right now is closed. We also have contracts with Chavez County.
Okay. I have Councilor Oropesa wishing to speak on this matter. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I'm confused, but did we not approve a contract with another entity for the airport at some point?
We did, and that began in the beginning of 2020, I believe, right about the time COVID started. Right. And so COVID kind of killed all of that because they couldn't operate during that time. So that has since expired, and the Pecos Flavors company does not wish to come back and execute another lease with us, so we've moved on.
Okay. Not that I mind Summit, because they make some great food. I've eaten their food in several places, but I was just wondering what happened to the agreement that we had with Pecos Flavor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. I have no one else wishing to speak on this matter. At this point, I will ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the agreement with Summit Food Services as presented. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed, please say nay. No. I have one no and no. Okay. Ms. Call, are you clear that Councilor? Okay. We have no by Councilor Sanchez and Councilor Moore, so the vote it would be 6-2. All right. Thank you very much. All right, next up is item number 34, Councilor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion for us to consider the award of the RFP 22005 on-call engineering and architectural services to all proposers. To the established pool of vendors. Recommended vendors are I'm just going to go ahead and say a long list, the list provided.
13.
Thank you.
13, okay. I have a motion by Counselor Foster and a second by Counselor Best to consider the award of RFP 22005 on-call engineering and architectural services to the firms listed on the handout. Mr. Nahar.
Mayor, Council, first let me say I feel like Mariano Rivera a lot because I'm the closer, and he's the best closer ever if you know baseball. I'm the Yankees.
Okay, we're not done yet.
And I do want to wish you, Mayor and Council, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, because there is no infrastructure for me this month, and just want to wish you all safe holidays. The 13 vendors, remember we had a pool of 5. We went out again to get architects. I'm thrilled we have 13, and we have some specialty people. If you studied your scores, one of the lowest scores was TIC, Tank Industry Consultants, but they're very specialized. And as you see on the slide, our Roswell Towers, which came in 9th in the nation with the rating as popularity. And then we do things, those of you that remember in 2016, we did the museum bridge. We had to close the museum bridge, and we called a consultant. So now we have a vast, diverse group of consultants, architects, landscape architects. So whatever the need Roswell has, we can respond. I was asked, how soon can we start this? We can start this tomorrow, so I'm sure we'll be busy, and I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. I have no one on my list wishing to speak on this matter, so I will ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the award of RFP 22-005 for on-call engineering and architectural services to the firms listed. A no or nay rejects the award. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay.
Thank you, Council.
Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. I had no one signed up to speak on non-agenda items, so we are now looking at future agenda items. And I have Ms. Call walking to see what we're doing next. All right. All right, future agenda items. Anything, counselors, that we need to have addressed at the next council meeting that we've not talked about? Anything from the committees? Let's go back to that committee slide. I want to see if there's anything we need to be talking about on finance. Anything extra? Councilor Perry's out. Councilor Oropesa, anything you want to bring us? Okay. Public safety, Councilor Best, anything you want to?
No, sir.
Okay. Infrastructure, we have Councilor Kennard on the phone and on the online. Anything we need to be aware of for future agenda items from infrastructure, Councilor?
No, sir.
I have general services. I have Councilor Foster. Anything that we will be needing to discuss or made aware of for a future council meeting?
No, sir.
And finally, on legal, Councilor Stubbs. Same old stuff. All right. Very good. Now, we have the city manager. I understand you have a 2-hour presentation. Is that correct, Mr. Nebb?
Yes, sir. And we got the time for it tonight, right? No.
We do. And
All right.
they think I'm kidding, don't they?
No, I have no slides with this. Just a few items. Mayor, City Council, thank you for tonight. On Tuesday, December 14th at 2 p.m., we will be opening cell number 5. We'll do a ribbon cutting. We have gotten notification from the state that it has been accepted, and we are ready to go. On Tuesday, December 21st at 2 p.m., we will be ribbon cutting the Lee and Deming Bridge. We have reached the end of that one. We've gotten through the monsoon seasons and everything, and we're ready to go. I do know that email came out that General Services has canceled their meeting for December. And I believe Mr. Nahar just said that infrastructure will not be meeting in December. I believe legal and finance are still meeting, and I believe public safety is not. So, other than that, I don't have a lot of other things. I'll be doing a newspaper article tomorrow. I'll be meeting with Ms. Ogle on the recent rash of concerns from the utility billing office. And so we'll be having a conversation about that. I will say to all of you that when we look at the issues that we are having, it is less than 1% of our customer base that are having trouble. We have 19,477 accounts, and so it's less than 1/2% of who's having issues within the utility billing system. And I believe we've been able to fix all of those types of issues. So, but that we will do a story on that and an interview to cover some of that, and there will be more information coming forward on that. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? I have Councilor Oropesa. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I've got a couple of calls, and I've talked to some staff concerning the political signs. But my understanding is that a couple of individuals have been cited already based on our regular policy, or I'm not sure whether it was a police that cited them or code enforcement, the one that cited them. But can you address for those individuals
Certainly.
that will be running, whether it be current incumbents or
Yes, sir.
somebody else, what the policy really is
Yes, sir.
as far as political science is concerned?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, City Council, there has been nobody cited. There have been calls made because the political signs are coming out. The city code, which is a city law, states that signs cannot be placed into city right-of-way or easements in the city in the area. The challenge comes back to a conversation we had over a year and a couple months ago, that in our downtown area especially, we have very wide right-of-ways from sidewalk to sidewalk. It is illegal to place a sign within the right-of-way, according to our current city code. And so the signs have to be placed on the other side. The signs have to be placed on private property, not on city right-of-way. In 2020, we went through because we have not enforced the law the way it was written, and we have actually allowed some latitude within there. I did not have enough staff at that time in order to enforce it directly, so I did a directive, and we moved it. We shifted the system a little bit, and we got through that election cycle for that year. I think we had 4 elections that year. At this point in time, we have met with staff and everything, and we will enforce the code as it is written, unless the city council takes it up. And I believe legal is planning on talking about it at the next committee meeting in order to determine if there are any changes that need to be made to the code. So we are out there because the political signs have started to show up. We are asking everybody to remove the signs off of the city right-of-way, the city easements, and place them on their property. And we're hoping that if we can get that done, we'll have a safe and clean election cycle. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Moore, you have the floor.
Yes. All candidates receive a copy of the policy and everything, and we will do. I think because we have not enforced it to the level of what we have been doing, we will be doing some additional education as well to try to make sure that everybody is. We are trying to do it. We have not cited anybody as of at this point in time. We are informing individuals to move the signs onto public or private property.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I have Councilor Foster. Councilor Foster, you have the floor.
My question goes towards our realtor signs. Have we told our realtors that they need to move their signs?
We will be telling our realtors the political signs, the real estate signs, and the church signs, which happen to have a tendency to find their way onto city property. We intend to enforce them all equally. We consider them all temporary signs is what they're called, and so we will enforce them all in that way. So we have not, I don't know if we've reached out to the real estate agents yet, but we will begin doing that as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, counselors? Not, I have the time as 8:05. We are adjourned.